Welcome to this introduction to the Victory by Any Means game. This is the strategic game of interstellar exploration, diplomacy, and conquest. This is the third edition that was released in April 2025. This is going to be a quick overview of what you can expect from this game, which is available either from victorybyanymeans.com or through DriveThruRPG or Wargame Vault. This game is at its heart a 4X strategy game where you are starting from a single homeworld and expanding outward into the galaxy. If we look at the PDF file, we can see our table of contents over here. It gives you a quick idea of what's here, but as a quick overview, our core concepts, we have a chapter that goes through and explains what everything is in the game, which includes star systems, jump lanes, military units, civilian units, and special abilities. Putting everything up front so it's easy to go through and find what you're looking for and kind of get the basics of the game down and the lingo and terms before you get any further. We have a chapter on campaign setup that gives you a list of different campaigns, which with the New Empires campaign is the default option. But you can go through and set up any campaign that you want. There are several options here, including a solo campaign after the fall, which is a good starting solo campaign, so you can go through and get an idea for how the system works. Each scenario includes a number of players, the information about map setup, the starting tech gear, which tells how advanced each empire is, what their starting forces are, how many units they'll start with, any special or optional rules that apply, and then what the victory conditions for that scenario are. And the victory conditions are different from scenario to scenario. Some have a simple time limit. Some have a condition that's like a military victory condition that you have to take so many home worlds and take control of those, or you have to achieve some other end result in order to win. So there's a little bit of variety here. And we have scenarios from one player up to 6 players. So there is some variety, so you can play a solo game or you can play with a game up to 6 players. You can play with more than 6 players, but none of the existing scenarios support that right now. But if you're creating a game from scratch, you have full control. In the past, we have run Victory by Any Means campaigns that have that have had up to 12 players, 12 to 14 players. It gets a little bit dicey, but that's one of those things. And to go back here, you can play this game with or without a campaign moderator. Basically, the campaign moderator acts as your game master that can be in charge of handling the operation of the campaign. If you don't want to, you don't have to play with one. It just means that there's certain bits of information that are going to be public. Basically, everything will be public if you don't have a CM, but it doesn't really impact the game that much. So it makes it a lot easier and probably a better experience for the players if there is a CM, but you don't have to have one. So once we get past campaign setup, we get to actually playing the game. This is the meat of the game system that is spelled out in sequence of play order, which if we go over here, we can see the sequence of play. This gives us a breakdown of all of our different phases. We start with the economics phase where we earn income and get ourselves ready for the turn orders phase, where you actually record all of your orders, kind of similar to how you would do it in the old board game Diplomacy, where you go do all your wheeling and dealing before the game really starts at the beginning of the turn. You record your orders, and then the rest of the turn is spent resolving those orders. Next, we have the intel phase, where we go and gather some intelligence about systems where we have units, and then we resolve our covert actions. The movement phase is where all of your movement orders are performed. You can either embark or disembark units. You can move units. You can explore. And it's also when you check for the presence of any raiders. Raiders are pirates or brigands that can attack you. So you have to watch out for them. Diplomacy phase is where you resolve first contact. You resolve your diplomatic actions to see whether you're going to either raise or lower your political state. Then you also adjust your diplomatic cooldown values, which we'll go into each of these elements in more detail in another video. And then we have combat phase, where we resolve all of our encounters that have been generated for this turn, and each encounter can include space combat, orbital bombardment, and ground combat. The supply phase is where we check the supply status of all of our units and mark units that are out of supply as being out of supply and check to see if there's any supply attrition. We can also use our military supply ships to keep units in supply. But if we use our military supply ships in that way, then we have to check to see if they're exhausted. The construction phase is where we resolve all of our construction orders for the turn, which means going and building units, repairing units, mothballing, or reactivating. All that's handled in the construction phase. The tech phase is where we resolve any outcome from tech investment from this turn to see if you earn a tech advancement. And if you do earn a tech advancement, then you can use that to either unlock a new unit class on your force list or to go through and upgrade an existing unit class. At the end of the turn, we resolve any system improvement upgrades, jump lane upgrades, jump lane downgrades, go through and resolve morale and system loyalty, see if there's any rebellions, colonize new systems, resolve special events, and otherwise check to see whether anybody has won the game, and if so, then the game's over. Otherwise, we prepare for the next turn. So that's kind of the overall flow of the game and how everything goes. So in most part, when you're setting up and playing this game, you're collecting your income from your systems and trade routes, you're going through recording your orders, and then the rest of the turn is spent going through each of these different phases, resolving the actions that happen in that phase, and then you get to the end of turn phase and you say, okay, once we get all this stuff done, has someone met any of the victory conditions for our scenario? If not, we rinse and repeat, and we continue until we reach the end of our game. Now, most VBAM campaigns are going to last anywhere from probably 60 to 120 turns on average, with each turn being the equivalent of about a month. So 12 turns per campaign year. So you're usually looking anywhere from 5 to 10 years of actual gameplay. And the amount of time it takes to resolve a turn varies from playgroup to playgroup. It also depends on how comfortable you are with the rules and how much you've played the game in the past. I would say that you're running anywhere from probably 5 to 15 minutes per turn. So it's usually not too bad. So especially once you get used to the rules and during the early period of the game where there's less going on, you can just run through turns rapid fire. Because there won't be that much you'll be doing. Because no one's going to be in conflict early on. Which we'll get into that in a future video to kind of show you how an early game setup would work. Beyond playing the game, you have a section for optional rules. VBAM is set up to be very modular so that you can add and subtract rules as needed. The base rules are basically just the basic framework to run the game. Optional rules is where you can decide how you are going to go through and customize it to your specific taste. And that's why most of the rules in the game are split off as optional rules, so that you can decide that, okay, do I want to do a campaign where I'm doing a lot of exploration? Am I doing a campaign where there's some major alien threats that could come in and attack me? Do I want to deal with some other construction rules so it takes time for my ships to be built? There's a lot of things like that that you can go through and say, yes, I want to use these, or I don't. So it lets you really customize the game to meet your own desires. Beyond that, we have a brief history of the galaxy. That this version of the Victory by Any Means rules includes a campaign setting called Harbinger Wars that provides a little bit more context for what is going on in the game, where the previous two editions, it was just kind of a blank slate and people were kind of shoved into the deep end saying, hey, do what you want, have fun. This book gives you a better idea of what's going on in the default campaign setting. It's pretty common for players to end up creating their own campaign settings as time goes on, but for this game we wanted to give you a more structured experience. The next section is Alien Empires. There are 10 Alien Empires in the game, which we'll go into in a future video, but these Alien Empires all have the same set of information where, if we look at one as a sample, you will have the name of the empire, you will have a quote, you'll have some background information, a picture of the alien, a faction logo, and then each empire will have 3 traits. You'll have 2 positives and 1 negative. And then they also include a set of starting force recommendations. And if we go to the next page, we're going to see that each empire has a force list. This is a list of all the different units that they can research and upgrade during the game. Units that have an X start the game research no matter what. Otherwise, you will go through and research them as the game progresses. So, depending on your scenario, you could have a starting tech year of 3005, at which point everything that's at 3005 or earlier, you'll start researched. Or you can start with a bare 3000 tech year, at which point almost nothing would be researched, and you'd start from the ground up. Also included in the game is a random galaxy generator, so if you wanted to go through and create your own galaxy map, you could. Otherwise, the galaxy maps that come with the game look something like this. This is a 6-player map that has a hub system in the middle, and then a number of rings of systems around it equal to the number of players in the game. So this huge map is a 6-player map that has 6 rings of systems around there. And some hex maps are included with the game so that you can go through and print those out or load them into your graphic editor and make those changes as you want and just build your own map. So that is available. And otherwise, there is a chapter of designer notes for those that want a little bit more background on how the game got to where it was going. And otherwise, the other sections, there's appendices for player forms. There's appendices for all the different campaign maps. A set of star systems for pre-generated star systems. And a ship recognition chart that gives you a look at what the aliens' ships look like. So that you have some idea of who you're playing as to what their ships look like. So there's a selection of those that we produced. And at the very end, there's a rule index that gives you a quick way of looking up where these rules are in the book for different special abilities, for different rule entries. So you have some way of going through and finding that. So this has been a quick overview of Victory by Any Means. And I hope that you are interested. And again, check us out at victorybyanymeans.com or just look for us at Drive-Thru or Wargame Vault. And look forward to seeing you later. Bye.